New Mariner hitting coach Kevin Seitzer is with us. Thank you for coming, and welcome to the Seattle Mariners organization.
Well, thanks. I'm ecstatic to be here.
I got a million questions about what you're doing and what this is going to look like, but I've got to first introduce you to people, and I was hoping maybe you could take me back to 1987 for a moment, because I think I've known your name since then. I was young, but when you replaced George Brett at third base, like, it's kind of a thing. And even in Boston, it was like, who is this guy who's going to come in? He's so good, they're going to move George Brett? What was that like in 1987 in Kansas City when they tell you, hey, we're moving George Brett across the diamond for you?
Well, I got called up the year before, September call-up. And, they just come off winning the World Series in 85. And they had like 8 of their starters that were hurt on the DL at the time. And so they were about 18 games out of first. They gave a lot of us young kids an opportunity to play, and fortunately I was coming off my hottest month of my life in AAA, and they called me up, and I just kept going, and I did really good. And so I ended up making the team in 87 as a rookie, the opening day first baseman, and George was at third. And a couple weeks in, George got hurt. And when he came back, they said, he's too old. The third base taking too big a toll on him. We're going to move him to first, so we're going to put you back at third, where I signed as third baseman. And so I didn't really replace him.
Okay.
I switched positions with him.
Did that make it easier?
It didn't matter. For me, it
He's
was
a
like
legend.
I was just a kid. I looked at it as, I'm just a piece here. These are the big dogs around. I'm just going to do what I do and try and help the team in whatever way I can. So I really, since I signed, I got into pro ball, and when I got that first check for $600 a month in rookie ball, I'm like, holy cow, I'm getting paid to play baseball. It's like, it doesn't get any better than this. And so I didn't get caught up in, pressure or anything, because it's like, however far I go. This is just so cool that I get to play baseball and get a check for it. Mm-hmm. So, and my mindset never changed when I got to the big leagues. I was just going to have fun every day and see what happened.
By the way, George Brett too old at that point. Just so you know, 1987, George Brett was 34. Okay,
and but he'd been hurt a lot.
In 1988, the next year, he had an 898 OPS. 2 years later, at 37, it was 902, and he still had 3 years of productivity after that.
All because he went to first base.
There you go. You saved his career. That was nice of you.
There you go.
What is the best George Brett story? What is the strangest, weirdest, most intense George Brett story?
Oh, goodness. He was unbelievable to play with. And this isn't strange, but for me, it was who George was, and it was the biggest impression that he made on me as a young player. And literally, it was day one that I got called up to the big leagues. And I grew up in a little town in central Illinois, St. Louis Cardinal fan, psychotic Cardinal fan, and I just loved watching these guys play. Well, this was back in the day when you'd hit a ground ball, routine ground ball, and they just jogged to first, just nice and easy. I'm like, oh, these guys are my legends. That's just so amazing how cool they look, just jogging to first. And I didn't play that way, and it wasn't allowed to play that way when we were coming up through the minors. But I always thought, it's like, if you ever get to the big leagues, that's when you can be cool. That's when you can jog. And so I get there the first day. I'm sitting on the bench. I didn't start the first game when I got called up. And George was up, and literally his first at bat, he hits a one-hopper back to the pitcher. First inning, one-hopper back to the pitcher, and he takes off running as hard as he can stink and run to first, ran through the bag. And I'm sitting there with my mouth hanging open going, you got to be kidding me. I mean, this is the legend right here. And he just went that hard.
Wow.
2 at-bats later, exact same thing. Comebacker to the mound, did exactly the same thing. It impressed me so much, I go, that's how I'm going to play the rest of my career. Yep. That's how I played my whole life. I always got complimented because of how hard I played, I said, I ain't going to quit now. I'm going to keep freaking doing it. St. Louis Cardinals didn't play the game the right way. That's what it boils down to.
Mm-hmm. Spoken like a Kansas City Royal.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right. So why are you here? Why Seattle after, a decade in Atlanta? And I'm sure some other opportunities and options. Why all the way up here in the Pacific Northwest?
Honestly?
Yeah.
This,
no, dishonestly.
No,
lie to us, please.
No, because you're probably going to go, no way, he's not telling us the truth. But this is the honest truth. After the Braves let me go, I wasn't coming back. It was probably, I don't know, a couple days after I got home after the season. So probably 4 or 5 days after the season ended, and I was like 9. I think there were 9 hitting jobs that opened up, and I was under contract for the next year, so I could work or not work. I was still going to get paid. And I'm like, I don't know what I want to do, because a few years ago I told my wife, I'm so happy here. It's been so great here. I'm going to turn 63 here next month, and I'm like, I don't know if I want to keep doing this. I may,
go fishing.
And I don't know, I love what I do. I have passion for what I do, but starting over in a new place, you have to build trust, relationships, get to know guys. It's a new program. There's new expectations. All front offices are different from an analytics standpoint. And I had the best of all worlds in Atlanta, being able to use everything the way I wanted to use it to present it to the players. And so, I was like, I don't know. Well, after about 3 or 4 days, I'm like, yeah, I still want to work. I still want to work. So literally I started praying every day really hard. 9 hitting jobs open. I don't want to have 5 or 6 interview processes I have to go through. I don't want to, I don't want this to be hard. I want to be where God wants me. I want it to be crystal clear. I want to be guided and directed every step of the day. That's how I've been a Christian for 30 some years. And it's like, that's how I live my life. And so it's like, okay, nothing's changing. We just got a little different situation here. So I'm like, God, you want me to shut her down? Then make it clear. Nobody call. And if you do want me to keep going, make it crystal clear where you want me. Now, no phone calls.
Door closed.
Door closed.
Honey-do
3
list.
weeks. And I tell my wife, I go, you may want to start looking at some trips we're going to start doing. We may have to start traveling. When I leave to go to work, I'm gone 8 months. And then when I come home for 4 months, my wife, she's ready to go on vacation. Well, my vacation is my recliner at my house, and I don't want to leave home. I love home, and it's wonderful. And we got, 4 of our 5 grandkids are 20 minutes away that I don't get to see all during the season.
So who calls you?
So Alex Anthopoulos calls me. It's 3 weeks after. We got hitting coaches getting hired all over the place. Hitting coaches changing teams, going here, more hitting coaches. I'm sitting there, I'm like, and my wife goes, well, you told God to make it clear.
Yeah.
And so that's what he's doing. And Alex calls me and he goes, Seattle just called last night, so be expecting a phone call. I said, okay, thanks. So they called me. They said, you still want to work? Yep, I want to work. So we'd like we'd like to interview you. Yeah. Perfect. So that was a Monday. 2 days later, I had a long interview with Dan and Edgar. And then on Friday, I had another interview with Jerry, Justin, and Andy. And on Monday, Jerry called me and offered me the job.
Awesome.
And one of the big factors, I've been the head guy my whole career. This will be my 17th year as a hitting coach. And they're like, Edgar's going to be the head guy. And I go, perfect. I'm like, this is perfect. Because through the interview process, the conversation, and they're asking me questions, and so I'm just shooting from my heart, and this is who I am, and it's like, if this ain't what you're looking for, this ain't the right fit.
Right.
And so as the interview unfolded, Edgar's making comments, responses to what I'm saying, and I'm like, son of a buck, he thinks exactly the same way I do. And it was like, he's really, I mean, gap to gap, stay in the middle of the field, don't try and do too much, don't try and go deep, don't get big. We're just going to let homers happen and not force it, and two-strike approach and grinding, situational hitting. It's critical, got to do it. And I'm like, oh, my gosh, this is perfect. And so for me, I said, this is the best of all worlds, because he has been with these guys for so long. Even though he only came in at the end of the season, he's been around them for forever.
Yep.
Him and Dan both, and so they know how these guys think and how they tick. And that's the hardest part in our job, coming to a new team, is getting to know what makes them tick and what buttons to push whenever they get out of whack. And so I'm like, this is perfect. And then it's like, if he thinks the same way I do, and we're going to talk about adjustments and how to play the game and how to think at the plate and all of this, I'm like, if anybody looks at me weird, I go, I got a Hall of Famer right here that thinks the same way. So let's go ahead and focus on this.
So now you're here talking to Kevin Seitzer, new Mariner hitting coach, and bringing a lot of personality and everything to the table. I can see why you interview well and why you're a relational kind of a coach, and bring all of your experience and everything else. So you get here, and you know that the offense was problematic last year, and really for the last couple of years. You know you're dealing with the hardest park in baseball to hit in, and that's not, an opinion. That's essentially been proven now to be factual in a lot of ways. Where do you start? What is the beginning of the process to get this team to have a good offense?
So after I got hired, since when Dan and Edgar took over, during the off season, I would go down and get on my bike, and I would watch a game every day. And I just fast forward to our offense. I wanted to hear the broadcast. I wanted to watch the games. I wanted to see body language. I wanted to see the swing. I wanted to see the focus, the takes, and all of that.
What'd you see?
And I saw a tremendous amount of grinding, great at-bats that last month of the season that was pointed in the right direction, and I could already see Edgar's thumbprint on these guys and the buy-in. Based on conversations I had with him, it was validated in what I saw too. And so, I got excited about that, because it's like you could tell that he made an impression on him to simplify some things, and there was some confusion, some apprehension, didn't want to chase, so guys were, in between and careful at the plate, and that's not a mindset that a hitter can have. And so Edgar got him aggressive, got him on the fastball, got him in the middle of the field, and they started getting after it, and you could tell Dan had them playing hard. They're running the bases, they're getting after it, and there was just a lot of good stuff. Then I spent time individually just watching swings and seeing things that I saw, taking down notes. Then we talked to Edgar. I mean, we had lots of conversations over the winter. And then once I get down here, I got a little bit of a mindset as to what I'm expecting to see. And Edgar's filled me in on who they are mentally, emotionally, things like that. And, all hitters got little demons they have to deal with. And, to be able to help them get over the hump that way is something that, hitting coaches have to really, really focus on. So, get in the cage with them, and it's like I had conversations with all of them, checked on them a couple of times, nothing big, just get to know them type conversations. How you doing? Did you have a great Christmas? Great. How's your swing feeling? Body feeling good? Yep, good. Okay, I'll see you in spring, because I don't want to talk about any mechanical changes. They sent me some videos of what they look like. They wanted to know what I thought, and I gave them minimal feedback, because until you get with them eye to eye in that cage, you don't know how they're going to respond to it based on, I'm going off a few swings of soft toss. And So then it's just been a very, very great transition so far. I already feel the openness, the love, the energy, the focus. It's the work, everything. The work ethic's just been through the roof, and so I couldn't be happier. And then it's like you see the new cages that they did, and that's like the Taj Mahal for hitting coaches. It's just beautiful. And the complex is stinking beautiful. We can get all the work done we need, the schedule, the coaches, the people, the front. Everybody's together.
So the biggest piece for us that we talk about so much is Julio. He's the best player on this team. He's the most talented guy on this team. And the last couple of years, there's been inconsistency. He's not quite reached that potential that I think everyone knows he has. Personally, I keep looking at it and seeing just the number of pitches he swings at.
Right.
55% last year, which was quite a bit above the major league average of, I think, 47. You were with Acuna, who swings at like 30% of the pitches he sees.
Well, Albie swings at 78% of the pitches.
All right, that's the other side of it. What is the approach with the best player on this team, Julio Rodriguez?
It's just going to continue. My focus is to continue to build off the path, the direction that Edgar put him on at the end of the season, because he finished really strong. He's been a swing guy, he's been a chase guy, but he's also been a damage guy. And so there's good and the bad. And what I found, all the young kids that came up, the Acuñas, Albies, Rileys, those guys, Michael Harris, that as they came through the system, they had their adjustment issues that they had to make to big league pitching. And when, he came up crashing on the scene, all of a sudden pitchers start making adjustments. Sometimes hitters can try and make the wrong adjustments in order to be ready to hit what they're trying to do to you. And I feel like what Edgar did with him is really get him locked in on a consistent approach and plan to where he was staying in the middle of the field. Guys are going to have chase. That chase comes with this game because of the electric pitching that we see nowadays, the high velos, the late breaking stuff, the strike to ball stuff. Guys, if you get on hitters too much about don't chase, then you're making them late on 90% of the fastballs they're going to see. So the approach, being consistent with the approach, the more you think middle of the field to opposite field, the better you see the ball. So you're able to check off the secondary stuff that are chase pitches more often than you were if you were just in see ball, hit ball, and just swing it, thrown ball.
Last thing for me, and Kevin Seitzer here with us, and it was just one example, so it's very small sample size, but Mike and I were watching yesterday in the cage with one of the groups, and you were right behind, and it looked from my perspective that there's some pretty good communication, just kind of talking through the process. I think we've known here, and getting to experience you for 20 minutes, verbal guy, like to communicate, which is awesome. Are you a talker? Is that kind of this is what I'm going to bring to the table? There is going to be a lot of communication. This isn't a distant hitting coach that you wonder, well, what is a hitting coach even doing? You seem to be pretty proactive.
You have to be proactive, but your timing, the message, the delivery is the key. And when I'm doing an interview for 20 minutes, you guys are asking me questions and I'm talking. Yep. But when I talk to these guys, a part of coaching is, they don't want to hear a full dissertation on something. They just want a nugget to help with this or help with that. And so the conversations a lot of times are me asking questions and then giving them feedback of what I see and a little try this with your hands, try this with your setup, or whatever it is, a little tweak or adjustment. And usually those conversations are the majority 30 seconds, but sometimes there'll be a 2-minute one when a guy wants to dig in deeper, but it's him asking me my questions. But I learned a really, really cool lesson when I first got into coaching. And it was in staff meetings with front office people, and they'd ask me something about a hitter, and I'd tell them what I thought. Well, it was in detail, and they asked me what I thought, and I wanted to make sure that they understood exactly what I thought. And after a couple of these meetings, my manager called me in the office. He goes, "I'm going to give you a piece of advice." He goes, "When they ask you your opinion," he goes, "they don't want this, they want this."
Yeah.
And so,
and since we're on radio, you just went from a large,
a foot,
large scale
to an
inch.
Yeah, Reader's Digest version.
Yeah.
Just hit them with the fact, and that's something that stuck with me. I never forgot it. When it comes to interviews, that's a different story.
Mm-hmm.
But that stuck with me. And these guys don't want a dissertation either. They just want a nugget. And so, in the land of ADD that we live in right now, they can't handle too much. So you just give them a nugget, see how it adjusts, and then go from there.
3 names that you're excited to work with this year. I know it's everybody, but give me 3 that just jump out to you. Like, I'm psyched to work with this dude.
Well, obviously Julio. Dylan Moore is another one.
So Jay Buhner said the same thing. We talked to Jay Friday, and I know there's a lot of controversy here between Jay Bone Buhner and then Harry Hill Bone. I know there's a big bone fight.
Boneyard.
Yes. Jay said the same thing. We said, give me a pick to click. He's like, oh, it's Dylan Moore, no doubt. Why Dylan Moore?
Because I feel like there's so much untapped in his ability. He was in Atlanta. I think it was 2015. He was in AA, and he was one of those kids that comes over, just for a fill-in on a big league game. And there's probably, in all my years as a hitting coach, there's been about 5 kids that when they come over, I get excited to see them. That sucker was a little get-after-it gamer, grinder, fighter when he was just doing his flips in the cage, had a smile on his face, intensity, work ethic, and he just lit my day up, and I told him every time he came over, and then he was gone.
Do you know his story of his first game?
No.
His first was his first inning of his first game. He made 3 errors at shortstop in his first game.
Oh, my.
It was one of the worst
Third base or shortstop?
That's a good question.
Now
Maybe it was third. You're right.
Yep.
But he made 3 errors. It was
so hard.
It was awful.
It was like, please, Lord, don't hit him in the ball again. Please.
One of the worst debuts
Been there, done that.
I've ever seen. And I don't think we expected that there was going to be much more Dylan Moore in our future here in Seattle.
Yeah.
Last year he wins a Gold Glove.
Right.
I mean, that was obviously just the worst inning he's ever had because he's a heck of a fielder and obviously a grinder and bounce back from that. Give me one more. Give me one more name. Who else are you enjoying working with?
JP. Yeah, I like the adjustments that he's made this offseason. 2 years ago, had a big year, great numbers, scuffled last year. And I don't want to shortchange anybody else. Polo and Randy. It's Mitch. There's so many. Mitch and Mitch, both of them, and Cal. I mean, I've fallen in love with all of them. It's one of the things. It's like as a hitting coach, you feel like you adopt a whole new family of kids that you just inherited, and it's like this is so cool, and I already feel a connection with all of them, and it couldn't be better.
Well, you know what's great is they all hit. There's going to be a statue of you and Edgar. Yes.
Arm in arm, arms around each other. Yeah, you'll be a Seattle legend.
It'll be Edgar and then Mini-Me.
That's all right.
After what we've seen the last few years, I don't know. It might be a giant statue. We would definitely like to do this again. It's a pleasure to meet you, and a lot of fun to hear the strategy and the plan.
Yep.
And the response here, as you might imagine, on our text machine, it was pretty tremendous. So thank you so much, Kevin Seitzer. Hey, thanks for watching us at Spring Training. If you want more of this kind of content, it's pretty easy. Just subscribe.
Yep, and you can always download the app. I think he tells you that every once in a while. You can download the Seattle Sports app as well.